The Battle of Himera, excerpt from Book 7 of the Histories by Herodotus. At the death of Cleandrus, son of Pantares, who had been tyrant of Gela for 7 years, and had been slain by a man of that city named Sabilus, the sovereignty passed to Cleandrus' brother, Hippocrates. While Hippocrates was tyrant, Gelon, a descendant of the ministering priest Telenes, was one of Hippocrates' guard, as were Anaxidemus, son of Patacus, and many others. In no long time he was appointed for his worth to be captain of the entire cavalry, for his performance had been preeminent while he served under Hippocrates in the assaults against Callipolis, Naxos, Zancle and Leontini, Syracuse, and many other of the foreigners' towns. None of these cities, with the exception of Syracuse, escaped enslavement by Hippocrates. The Syracusans were defeated in battle on the river Alorus. They were, however, rescued by the Corinthians and Corcyraeans, who made a peace for them on the condition that the Syracusans should deliver up to Hippocrates Camarina, which had formerly been theirs. When Hippocrates too, after reigning the same number of years as his brother Cleandrus, came to his end near the town of Hebla, from where he had marched against the Sicels, then Gelon made a pretense of serving the cause of Hippocrates' sons, Euclides and Cleandrus, whose rule the citizens would no longer bear. When he had defeated the men of Gela, however, he deposed the sons of Hippocrates and held sway himself. After this stroke of good fortune, Gelon brought back from the town of Casmina to Syracuse both the so-called landed gentry of Syracuse, who had been driven into exile by the common people, and their slaves, the Silurians. He then took possession of that city also, for the Syracusan common people surrendered themselves and it to Gelon at his coming. When he had made Syracuse his own, he took less account of his rule over Gela, which he gave in charge to his brother Hiero. Over Syracuse he reigned, and all his care was for Syracuse. Straightway that city grew and became great, for not only did Gelon bring all the people of Camarina to Syracuse, and gave them its citizenship, raising the township of Camarina, but he did the same thing to more than half the townsmen of Gela, and when the Megarians in Sicily surrendered to him on terms after a siege, he took the wealthier of them, who had made war on him, and expected to be put to death for this, and brought them to Syracuse to be citizens there. As for the common people of Megara, who had no hand in the making of that war and expected no harm would be done to them, he too brought these to Syracuse, and sold them for slaves to be taken out of Sicily. He dealt in a similar way with the Euboeans of Sicily, making the same distinction. The reason for his treating the people of both places in this way was that he held the common people to be exceedingly disagreeable to live with. By these means, Gelon had grown to greatness as a tyrant, and now when the Greek envoys had come to Syracuse, they had audience with him and spoke as follows. The Lacedaemonians and their allies have sent us to win your aid against the foreigner, for it cannot be, we think, that you have no knowledge of the Persian invader of Hellas, how he proposes to bridge the Hellespont and lead all the hosts of the east from Asia against us, making an open show of marching against Athens, but actually with intent to subdue all Hellas to his will. Now you are rich in power, and as the lord of Sicily you rule what is not the least part of Hellas. Therefore we beg of you, send help to those who are going to free Hellas, and aid them in doing so. The uniting of all of those of Greek stock entails the mustering of a mighty host, able to meet our invaders in the field. If, however, some of us play false and others will not come to our aid, while the sound part of Hellas is but small, then it is to be feared that all Greek lands alike will be destroyed. Do not for a moment think that if the Persian defeats us in battle and subdues us, he will leave you unassailed, but rather look well to yourself before that day comes. Aid us, and you champion your own cause. In general, a well-laid plan leads to a happy issue. This is what they said, and Gelon, speaking very vehemently, said in response to this, Men of Hellas, it is with a self-seeking plea that you have dared to come here and invite me to be your ally against the foreigners. Yet what of yourselves? When I was at odds with the Carchedonians, and asked you to be my comrades against a foreign army, and when I desired that you should avenge the slaying of Darius, the son of Anaxandrides, on the men of Egesta, and when I promised to free those trading ports from which great advantage and profit have accrued to you, then neither for my sake would you come to aid, nor to avenge the slaying of Darius. Because of your position in these matters, all these lands lie beneath the foreigners' feet. Let that be, for all ended well, and our state was improved. But now that the war has come round to you in your turn, it is time for remembering Gelon. Despite the fact that you slighted me, I will not make an example of you. I am ready to send to your aid 200 triremes, 20,000 men-at-arms, 2,000 horsemen, 2,000 archers, 2,000 slingers, and 2,000 light-armed men to run with the horsemen. I also pledge to furnish provisions for the whole Greek army until we have made an end of the war. All this, however, I promise on one condition, that I shall be general and leader of the Greeks against the foreigner. On no other condition will I come myself, or send others." When Syagrus heard that, he could not contain himself. "In truth," he cried, "loudly would Agamemnon, son of Pelops, lament, when hearing that the Spartans had been bereft of their command by Gelon and his Syracusans. No, rather put the thought out of your minds that we will give up the command to you. If it is your will to aid Hellas, know that you must obey the Lacedaemonians, but if, as I think, you are too proud to obey, then send no aid." Thereupon Gelon, seeing how unfriendly Syagrus' words were, for the last time declared his opinion to them. "My Spartan friend, the hard words that a man hears are likely to arouse his anger, but for all the arrogant tenor of your speech, you will not move me to make an unseemly answer. When you set such store by the command, it is but reasonable that it should be still more important to me, since I am the leader of an army many times greater than yours, and more ships by far. But seeing that your response to me is so haughty, we will make some concession in our original condition. It might be that you should command the army, and I the fleet, or if it is your pleasure to lead by sea, then I am ready to take charge of the army. Will that you will surely be content, unless you want to depart from here without such allies as we are." Such was Gelon's offer, and the Athenian envoy answered him before the Lacedaemonian could speak. "King of the Syracusans," he said, "Hellas sends us to ask you not for a leader, but for an army. You, however, say no word of sending an army without the condition of your being leader of Hellas. It is the command alone that you desire. Now, as long as you sought the leadership of the whole force, we Athenians were content to hold our peace, knowing that the Laconian was well able to answer for both of us. But since failing to win the whole, you would gladly command the fleet, we want to let you know how the matter stands. Even if the Laconian should permit you to command it, we would not do so, for the command of the fleet, which the Lacedaemonians do not desire for themselves, is ours. If they should desire to lead it, we will not withstand them, but we will not allow anyone else to be admiral. It would be for nothing, then, that we possess the greatest number of seafaring men in Hellas. If we Athenians yield our command to the Syracusans, we who can demonstrate the longest lineage of all, and who alone among the Greeks have never changed our place of habitation, of our stock too, was the man of whom the poet Homer says that all who came to Ilion, he was the best man in ordering and marshalling armies. We accordingly cannot be reproached for what we now say." "My Athenian friend," Gelon answered, "it would seem that you have many who lead, but none who will follow. Since, then, you will waive no claim but must have the whole, it is high time that you hasten home, and tell your Hellas that her year has lost its spring." The significance of this statement was that Gelon's army was the most notable part of the Greek army, just as the spring was the best part of the year. He accordingly compared Hellas deprived of alliance with him to a year bereft of its spring. After such dealings with Gelon, the Greek envoys sailed away. Gelon, however, feared that the Greeks would not be able to overcome the barbarian, while believing it dreadful and intolerable that he, the tyrant of Sicily, should go to the Peloponnese to be at the beck and call of Lacedaemonians. For this reason, he took no more thought of this plan but followed another instead. As soon as he was informed that the Persian had crossed the Hellespont, he sent Cadmus son of Scythes, a man of Cos, to Delphi with 350-oared ships, bringing them money and messages of friendship. Cadmus was to observe the outcome of the battle, and if the barbarians should be victorious, he was to give him both the money and the earth and water on behalf of Gelon's dominions. If, however, the Greeks were victorious, he was to bring everything back again. This Cadmus had previously inherited from his father the tyranny of Cos. Although the tyranny was well established, he nevertheless handed the government over to the whole body of the Coans, of his own free will. This he did under no constraint of danger, but out of a sense of justice, and he then went to Sicily, where he was given by the Samians the city of Zancle, which he colonized and changed its name to Messene. This is how Cadmus had come, and it was he whom Gelon now sent, because of his sense of justice. What I will now relate was not the least of the many just acts of Cadmus' life. He had in his possession great wealth entrusted to him by Gelon, and might have kept it. He nevertheless would not do so, but when the Greeks had prevailed in the sea fight and Xerxes had headed home, Cadmus returned to Sicily with all that money. There is, however, another story told by the Sicilians. Even though he was to be under Lacedaemonian authority, Gelon would still have aided the Greeks, had it not been for Tyrillus, son of Crinippus, the tyrant of Himera. This man, who had been expelled from Himera by Theron, son of Anesidemus, sovereign ruler of Acragas, at this very time brought against Gelon 300,000 Phoenicians, Libyans, Iberians, Legaes, Elicici, Sardinians, and Cernians, led by Amilcas, son of Anon, the king of the Carchedonians. Tyrillus had induced him to do this, partly through the prerogative of personal friendship, but mainly through the efforts of Anaxilaus, son of Cratines, tyrant of Rhegium. He had handed over his own children as hostages to Amilcas, and brought him into Sicily with the help of his father-in-law, for Anaxilaus had as his wife Tyrillus' daughter, Cydippe. Accordingly, Gelon sent the money to Delphi, because he could not aid the Greeks. They add to this tale, too, that Gelon and Theron won a victory over Amilcas the Carchedonian in Sicily on the same day that the Greeks defeated the Persian at Salamis. This Amilcas was, on his father's side, a Carchedonian, and a Syracusan on his mother's, and had been made king of Carchedon for his virtue. When the armies met, and he was defeated in the battle, it is said that he vanished from sight, for Gelon looked for him everywhere, but was not able to find him anywhere on earth, dead or alive. The story told by the Carchedonians themselves seems to have some element of truth. They say that the barbarians fought with the Greeks in Sicily, from dawn until late evening. So long, it is said, the battle was drawn out, during which time Amilcas stayed in his camp, offering sacrifice and striving to obtain favourable omens by burning whole bodies on the great pyre. When he saw his army routed, he cast himself into the fire, where he was pouring libations on the sacrifice. He was consumed by this, and was not seen any more. Whether he vanished as the Phoenicians say, or in the manner related by the Carchedonians and Syracusans, sacrifice is offered to him, and monuments have been set up in all the colonist cities, the greatest of which is in Carchedon itself.